USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Introducing the new Volvo XC90 with 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening, and depending on where you're listening from, welcome to another edition of Meet Me at Musial, or welcome to another edition of Gateway to Baseball Heaven. We've put the two together like I don't know what kind of unholy combination. And so if you're a Musial fan, we've got Alan Medlock, a Medlock One, joining us. We've got David Jones for the Gateway folks at iPop Editor. I'm your host, Daniel Sharp. If I didn't say that, it's a little bit of a mess. Cardinals are... Well, we thought this was going to be a good way to end the first half, but the Cardinals haven't finished the first half yet. Right now, we're recording this as the Cardinals play going into the top of the 7th inning of their game against the Braves. But we're going to put that aside for right now, because obviously the bigger news of the day is the fact that the MLB draft has come along and the Cardinals have made their first pick. David, you have been dealing with, you've been scouring things since I think at least January, if not longer. So why don't you talk about the first pick and what you thought about it?
Well, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I'm an idiot. So let's start there, because this draft kind of blew my mind at the top, which I think it did for every analyst. It just kind of came out of nowhere with what we were seeing. And I'm sitting here kind of going, is the bigger surprise today who the Cardinals took, or the fact that Fermin hit a home run today? Because both of those just don't seem like they should happen. But Liam Doyle is the newest Cardinal. I did not see that coming. He's a guy who I've actually watched quite a bit living in Tennessee, and I've seen him pitch a lot. But I never thought that he would be the type of player the Cardinals would take. He does not fit their typical role. And now, whether that's good or bad, we are yet to see. But the Cardinals, a lot of times when it comes to pitching, take the safe player. And that is not what they did here. They are far from it with Liam Doyle, a guy who has maybe the best fastball in all of college baseball. But there's some reliever risk there as well. But they did something that they just don't normally do. They took a guy who might be a boom or bust player when they had some safer, maybe 3 or 4 type starting rotation guys on the board. but they went high with this, and I'm still sitting here shocked that Liam Doyle is the newest Cardinal. I thought for sure it was going to be Eli Willits, and then after Willits went, I thought for sure it was going to be Jamie Arnold. But here we are. A Tennessee Vol is now a St. Louis Cardinal.
Yeah, I think it was pretty surprising. I mean, we've talked about it some, and I don't follow this nearly as much as either one of you do. And I know Alan's a big on the college circuit as well. So I want to let him talk about it here in a minute. But I didn't think this was going to happen. And I think it's very interesting to see. You know, again, part of it is maybe the fact that I'm an Arkansas person, and so we have have the little bit of a history watching Tennessee. But I don't know really how to feel about this, but there seems to be a lot of upside on this. Alan, what were you thinking?
Well, I think David put it perfectly. I think the draft was really thrown on its ear when they went Willits 1-1. I think that, I mean, anybody in the media, in Oklahoma media today thought it was a shoe-in that Willits was going to St. Louis. I would have liked that. Here was my board. It went Willits, Holiday, just because of the Oklahoma connection. And then if you wanted my true vote, it was going to be Arquette, the two Oklahoma shortstops, or a college pitcher. And what David said, it basically summed up what I was thinking. The minute that I saw Willits gone, I really thought that Arnold was a shoe-in. With the arm angle, with the oddity, with the safety, I really thought that was what was going to happen. So for them to go with Doyle, it really surprised me. And I was watching the MLB Network coverage the whole time, and it's really good because they have Vitello on there. And he was talking about how he came to campus, how it was almost kind of a battle to even to get him there because he was so out of shape last year pitching at Mississippi that he didn't even make their rotation. To come in and do what he did, it was very, very out of the norm for the Cardinals, and refreshing for some, for some of us that really thought it was going to be the safety or they were going to play the slot game and go that route. But to come in, get high strikeout, and we always talk about this. They may get the rusty nail with this guy. This could be something that's far from the norm for them, and it's somewhat refreshing.
Yeah, and David, you and I talked about this a little bit in messaging over the last month, I think. But the idea that personality, that big personality, was going to come into a Cardinal organization that has not typically been really open to that. Does that mean that? Are we seeing the fingerprints of Hein Bloom and his regime change on this more than what Randy Flores would have done without those guys in the room?
I think that's a possibility because Doyle is a different type of character. He's kind of like if you took Wilson Contreras and Steve Klein, meshed them together and made a starting pitcher. Like you're getting that type of fiery approach, that type of competitor, but also that type of guy who might mouth off at the other team a little bit and say some things he shouldn't. And you might see some fights, you might see some ejections because of the way this guy goes. He is definitely a competitor, but he's got some fire to him. And so I think that, there is a good chance that this is Bloom's fingerprints on this. Now, at the same time, it could be one of those things that Flores and the scouts, they just loved the talent so much that they said, you know what, we're taking the guy. We're going to ignore this all other stuff. We're going to take the guy who we think is at the top of our board, no matter what. And I mean, opinions are mixed on him. You look at Pipeline and you look at Baseball America, they had him ranked number 8. Well, that's okay. Sure. Fine. But then you look at Fangraphs. Today they put him out at number 1. They think he is overwhelmingly the top guy. Keith Law, which say what you want about Keith Law, but he has him at number 2 and thinks he is a future number 2 starter. Yahoo had him, I think, at 3 or 4, somewhere around there. So this is one of those things that even though I'm shocked and surprised, maybe I shouldn't be, because a lot of people were pointing to this, just not connecting him with the Cardinals. But as we've kind of seen in the past, that doesn't always mean that the Cardinals aren't interested. And sometimes they play a pretty good game of keeping things quiet. No one really knew that they were interested in Cags last year. And Derek Gould revealed that on his podcast just the other day. So credit to the Cardinals for playing this coy, for not giving it away. And sounds like they got one of the guys they wanted, even if it wasn't the top guy.
Yeah, it definitely does. And it is fascinating to think about a guy like this in the system, not only because we talked about it you always draft best player, but the Cardinals had a desperate need for top end starting pitching in their system. They needed any kind of starting pitching in their system, honestly. And so to get a guy in Doyle that I know reading, Katie, we put it out, passing on from Keith Law, he expected he thought he could start at AA. And that would be very aggressive for the Cardinals to do that. But I think that would be also very telling, perhaps, to have a guy that, we're not looking at 5 years down the road, but maybe just a couple of years down the road. Alan, I mean, is that putting too much on the pick right there?
Well, you loaded with this question to me because of the things I've been preaching for the past year. I think that the gap between college baseball and MLB has never been shorter. I think there's a lot of variables to that. One of which could be big is just eliminating kind of the bat factor of the hot aluminum bats, and where guys just are preparing to where I think that we're in the era of seeing these guys go from college to professional baseball at a major league level quicker than we ever have. And I feel like that you could see that throughout the draft. It wouldn't surprise me if we see him in AA this year. I doubt he starts in AA this year, to answer your question. But I do think that these top picks are closer than we've ever seen them.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the Angels picking players that they will put in their draft in their starting rotation probably tomorrow. But I think it is. I think it's very aggressive. I think David, you and I talked about. Yeah, we thought Jamie Arnold was probably, if they're taking a pitcher, that's who they're taking. And I wonder how much, what was the thinking in that room? Did they have, like I say, Willits lined up, and then once that went off the board, they, kind of just had to wait and see. I think that, listening to Randy Flores, it sounds like they got very excited as they saw that Doyle was continuing to drop to them. But I just wonder, if you were to look at their board, before the draft, and they have everybody on there, where did Doyle actually stand on their rankings? I know they're happy to have him, but I just wonder if was he maybe their first pick, even if everything else was equal.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I this is total speculation. We'll never know the true answer. I truly believe that Eli Willits was probably one of the top players. I think if I had to guess, I would say it probably went Ethan Holiday, Eli Willits, and then you're probably somewhere there, either Liam Doyle or Cade Anderson. I think it's somewhere there. So my guess is the Cardinals either got their number 3 guy or number 4 guy. I think they definitely got somebody that they were really high on. I don't see Bremner being high on their board, and thankfully they didn't take Ike Irish, which was kind of rumored. But to go to something that Alan was talking about, that gap and how short it is. Yeah, something that Derek Gould and JJ Cooper were talking about this week is how, we talk about the MLB draft. You don't draft for need. NFL, yes, you draft for need. You need a quarterback. You need an offensive lineman. You typically draft there. If you already have a quarterback, you don't take a quarterback. But they talked about how MLB is actually changing a little bit because of exactly what Alan said. That gap has become so short. You look at Paul Skeens, you look at Chase Burns, you look at how quickly some of these guys have made the jump, especially in the Angel system. You're taking best player available, but in some ways you are drafting for need as well. And if need's an issue for the Cardinals, you take that pitcher and you know that this guy may actually be in your system and up through the system within 6 months, maybe 18 months max. And so, yeah, you're still taking best player available, but that pipeline has become so much shorter that Doyle could be in this rotation within a couple years, if that.
And given what the openings that the Cardinals are going to have, I mean, even starting next year, having that as an option, becomes very intriguing, and maybe shortens up this rebuilding idea that they're having right now, or this reset, or however we want to phrase it, and makes them more competitive in a much shorter window of time. I think it's very, very intriguing. Now, Alan, I mean, as David mentioned a while ago, there's a risk that it just turns into a strong arm out of the bullpen. I figure it's going to take a long time to see that happen. But if that happens, is this a failed pick?
I mean, it depends on. any productive big leaguer like that, I think that you're going to say a yes. In a situation where we're all Cardinals fans here, the jury's going to be out on that because we don't know if they're ever going to have a top five again, in the foreseeable future, since they haven't in the past, whenever. So you heard monumental pick, they can't get this wrong. I don't know if a guy that can come out and get you X amount of holds or X amount of saves a year is actually going to be considered a success or not. In my eyes, yes, because it's going to help you win ball games. But in the long run and the 10,000-foot view, I really don't know.
What do you think? Because I'm kind of with Alan. I think if you get a guy that comes up and makes a contribution on the major league level, you haven't. It's not a failed pick. You would like to see a more substantial role, I think, out of a top 5 pick. But again, if you got a guy that was Ryan Helsley for 3 years out of that pick, maybe that's not the worst thing that you could see.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you get Josh Hader out of this, I think you probably take that. Now, that may be lofty, but I think you do. Now, if you get, let's say, Kevin Segrist at his dominance, you're probably a little disappointed with that from the number 5 pick. But, you look at these drafts, and especially MLB, when you're drafting 17, 18, 19, up to, 21-year-olds, the chances of hitting on these are a lot lower than some of the other drafts out there. And so a guy making the majors is pretty good just to start off with. Now you hope you get a superstar, especially drafting in the top 5. But I think if this guy is in the rotation, you consider that a success. If he is a dominant Hader-like closer, you consider that a success, while also hoping for more. So if he makes it to the majors and he's somewhat effective, no matter if he's a starter or he's in the bullpen, I don't think that's a bust by any standard. But I do think that it is the bar set a little bit higher because of how high he's been taken and because of how hard he throws, that you hope that maybe there is a little something there. You look out at Milwaukee and, suddenly they've got a starter throwing 103 who could make the All-Star game after 5 starts, which is ridiculous. But that's another story.
Yes.
But you hope that maybe there's something like that you see with Doyle, where the fastball plays, the fastball continues to grow, and you just hope that that's kind of who he turns into.
If you were to say, I don't want to, I just like best case scenario, what would you say you would like to see out of Liam Doyle, Alan? I mean, if you're talking, I mean, like I said, not just success, but like really top, 90th percentile, what would you like to see out of that?
I mean, if you could get a major success is, shoot for the stars and be a true 1 for somebody. But another thing too is if you could come in and be a 2 or 3 in today's baseball, I mean, I think that's a massive hit at a number 5 pick. If you're going to get, let's just put it this way. If he were to sign another contract in St. Louis, that'd be pretty big to me.
Yeah. Yeah. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I think maybe comps are so tough, but maybe somebody like a Robbie Ray. If he turned into Robbie Ray, I think you take that easily. A guy that you don't necessarily think of as like an ace in Major League Baseball, but he's a guy that's could be a 1 on some teams, a 2 on other teams, and who has had a very good career with some ups and downs. So if that's who he becomes, I'd be thrilled with this. And so that's kind of where I'm putting the ceiling for him right now, where I think he can actually get to.
I think that'd be great as well. The name that has come to me, and not because it's anything but superficial connections, not because that's what he looks like or what he could be or whatever, but the fact that he has the personality that he has, and then where he was born, you got Chris Carpenter, right? And I mean, I mean, even if you do the Chris Carpenter that the Cardinals had, which was, he won a Cy Young, but it's not a Hall of Famer. He dealt with injuries. He was, a Cardinal Hall of Famer, not if anything else. Again, I realize that's, top 1% of what happens. But if you could get somebody, even with just that mound presence, that could be really fascinating for a team that hasn't had that, especially on the mound, in quite some time.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's a big comp, and that was one of the first things that I thought about whenever you saw where he was from. It's one of those. If you can get one of those that can go out and win you a big ball game and not necessarily be your $300 million man, I mean, that's success in baseball.
So first pick is in the books. Cardinals have obviously a number of picks left. And David, I know you've not necessarily just dug in. I don't expect you to pick, the 20th round guy or anything like that, although maybe you're ready for that. I don't know. But what would you expect to see out of, even the rest of the night? I mean, are they still going to, lean toward pitching, or do you think they'll, grab some hitters up?
Well, I could have told you exactly how it was going to go till everything just messed up my mock and what I was thinking. So, yeah, because there was a point where I had gotten so sold on it being Willits, and even thinking that it might be Willits at an underslot. I started kind of looking at some of the younger pitchers and things like that, which, we hear a lot about Jack Bauer, high school kid hitting 103. Kind of sounds like a dream. That kind of goes through my mind. But I have wondered if they might start zeroing in a little more on college pitching, which we've kind of seen them do in later rounds. I've looked at guys like J.B. Middleton, Zach Root, who could possibly be pitchers that kind of fit their mold. That shorter pitcher who people kind of doubt a little bit. That kind of seems to be who the Cardinals like, the 6'1" type pitcher. Those type of guys who maybe that they've got one or two good pitches and a couple pitches that still need to be refined a little bit. And so that's kind of what I would expect. With this extra comp pick and the Cardinals having a little bit extra money, I kind of anticipate them taking some type of high schooler to maybe kind of go over slot, whether it be round 2, the comp pick, round 3. But I kind of expect them to really hammer in on pitching quite a bit, unless there's one of those hitters that just kind of seems to fall to them that they love. But that kind of seems to be what they've done a lot lately, and I kind of anticipate that going forward a little bit.
I really think the Tigers missed a trick not taking Jack Bauer at 24, but that's just me. I would have done it. Who cares what it's worth it or not? Yeah, Alan. I mean, what do you think? I mean, is that kind of where you're leaning toward as well?
Well, and yeah, I'm so indifferent on the rest of them that I'm going to defer to David here. That it's one of those where you get your top pick out of there, then you worry about, or then I'm sure signability is probably one of the next focuses on this. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I could see the high school player as a lottery pick type situation. Well, gamble type situation. Not good to use that term today, but yeah, just to to see how they fill it out and see what they have. I mean, that's I'm looking at the pick values here as opposed to what they had in round 1, and yeah, I mean it's kind of unprecedented what they were going to be able to do. So it'll be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I'm just kind of watching to see where the Razorback guys go and see the first ones off the board to Philadelphia. So I'm kind of interested in that. But yeah, I think, we get excited about the first pick and we should. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But, what's going to make this a good draft is how everything works together, right? I mean, if you can get a major leaguer in your 8th or 9th round pick, that's almost as valuable as getting one in the first round. So looking forward to seeing how they approach this. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see at the end of, not the day, because there's another day of draft too, but at the end of the draft, if we really can, like we go back to what we're saying there, are we going to see Heimblum's fingerprints on this? Is this going to be a draft that looks completely different than what other Cardinal drafts have looked like? Are we going to see this change in philosophy that we may be kind of talking about a lot this winter as Bloom really takes over? I think that's going to be, I think this is kind of the first place we can start to see if the big ship is turning around, is to see what this draft looks like. So that's what I'm interested in to see. And I really don't know what the answer is going to be to that, because we could see, they could have picked Doyle here, and then we could see 19 more picks of, yep, that sounds like the Cardinals. So I don't know.
David, are you surprised that only one of the Oklahoma arms is gone?
No, not necessarily. I'm a little surprised how far Witherspoon slid.
Yeah.
I really thought he would probably go top 12. So it was a little surprising to see him go 15. But I really thought that he might be the only one that would go at this point. I think his brother may come off the board sometime in maybe round 2 or something like that. I mean, he has electric stuff. He just has trouble locating it. But yeah, I'm not too surprised that Witherspoon's the only one to go at this point.
Gotcha.
Any other draft thoughts, David? I know you, like I said, you've put the work in here. So is there anything else that has surprised you, has, that you're looking forward to as the rounds continue to go through?
Well, I'm now, because Willits and Arnold are not Cardinals, I have to find ways to hate them and, think about how they're going to be just terrible prospects and that Doyle's going to be awesome. But, one thing I really thought about is, because I did not expect Doyle to be the pick. I just did not. And I've kind of been pulling for Willits, kind of been pulling for Arnold, but almost with some trepidation because they don't have the upside like the class last year did. And so I thought maybe I've almost just gotten kind of drunk on the Cardinals' safeness, and that just safety has kind of become the norm. And that's kind of what I was looking for. Just let's play it safe. Let's go for the guy that's going to get to the major leagues. May not be electric, but at least he's going to be a good big leaguer, rather than looking at the big picture or shooting big, going for the moon. And so maybe I've actually kind of been done in by the Cardinals' philosophy for so long that I just completely overlooked somebody like Doyle. Just thought there's no way, because I didn't think they would take him. But this is a chance. It's almost like, it feels like a new, fresh start for the team with Bloom kind of taking over and with somebody like Doyle, and that maybe this is what the team needs. Maybe they need this injected into their veins, not just his personality, but his skill set as well. And maybe we'll look back in 3 years and say, that was terrible. The guy just burned out. Or maybe we'll say, man, what a great pick. They got their ace, or they got their number 2 or whoever, because they took a risk. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. That's just kind of thinking big philosophy. You start breaking it down to X's and O's. I hope he can kind of develop a third pitch. The fastball is already amazing. He's got a great splitter. If that slider can come along a little bit better, then the Cardinals may be looking pretty good with who they got.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that that's the case, and we look forward to seeing how the rest of this draft kind of shakes out. David is actually on vacation, dedication here. Although Alan was going to do that from St. Louis. I don't know what it is about these people, that don't want to be in the same area when they're recording with me, but they have to go out and be stuff. So David, if you want to hang with us, we're great. If you want to get back to the pool, I will let you, escape to that as well.
Yeah, I got a few minutes. I may just hang around and listen. I've said all I need to say. I've been so wrong on this draft as it is. I don't need to be wrong on the Cardinals anymore, but I'll just hang out. Sure.
Well, I think we're fairly confident that we have all been wrong on the Cardinals for significant amounts of time, that adding to it is not going to be a problem. And what we're seeing is the Cardinals still have a 5-4 lead, at least the last I checked.
It is.
I don't think it started raining again. It might have, because I don't know that, Alan, that might be the story of the first half, is just how much rain this team has had to deal with. It's not just at home, but on the road. It feels like, 6 doubleheaders at least. And then a number of other games that have been delayed or postponed or whatever the case may be. And then finally get in the weather. I guess it's only fitting that they had like 4 hours worth of rain delays here as they try to wrap up what is, traditionally the first half.
Sure, it is. It's crazy how much weather has affected them this year. A funny story. Like I said, I was in St. Louis till yesterday about midday, and we were talking to some of the people that were from the state, and they found out I was from Oklahoma and whatnot. And one of them made the comment, "You're used to this." To me, you're used to this kind of stuff. We're not used to the rain and storms every day. And I said, I'll be honest. This has been the wettest June/early July that I can remember in a long time here in Oklahoma. And I think it just moves through Arkansas and through Missouri, because it has been crazy how much they've dealt with at home and on the road, so to speak. I mean, weather has been nuts. It's dictated basically this whole first half of the year for me personally, being on the high school side and moving things around and even doing some, the high school summer stuff. We had to move it all around. It's gone all the way up the chain, and the Cardinals are dealing with that right now. I mean, I can't. It's funny. Right before first pitch, I told Amber, I said, this is historically one of the quickest games on the schedule. I said, because they all have flight plans somewhere for a week, everybody but Donovan, of course, but they're trying to get out as quick as possible. Then you had the first rain delay. Then they come back in the fifth. They have the second one, and it goes on and on and on. Then I keep thinking, well, they're just going to bang it and they're going to move on. But it's funny that they're still playing at this point. I can't imagine the players are happy about this, but to get it in and not move one down later is probably the safest bet, considering that you may get more weather down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I really kind of thought that, especially about the players, when I saw Acuna kind of drop that ball and then not really chase after it to let the Cardinals tie the game back up at 3. I agree, and from what I've seen, Rob Raines was putting out there that, look, this was not the Cardinals' decision or the Braves' decision, and nobody really seemed to be happy with it. It was MLB's decision to not go ahead and call this game, and it's a little bit surprising. I mean, obviously the teams don't play again, but this is a Braves team that's probably not going to the playoffs unless they have some sort of miraculous comeback. It's a Cardinals team that's on the fringes.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think you could get rid of this game and you've got like a 1% chance that you're going to have to make this up at the last week of September or something of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know that it would be worth it for these players to go out and play it, like I say, a fairly meaningless game with no fans left in the stadium in a situation when they're trying to get onto a vacation. It's not ideal from a player's point of view. And I do wonder if this is something that the players raise with the players union, who raises it with MLB at some point in time, if trying to figure out a better way, some way of saying, hey, if there's a game before the All-Star break that's not going to get over by, with rain, not going to get over by 5 o'clock, then we cancel it or something like that. I just can't imagine that very many people are going to be happy with this.
Sure. This brings up a larger point to me, going into the All-Star break and everything right now with all the festivities of how much Major League Baseball can blow its own foot off. Mm-hmm. I mean, because there's a lot of motivation. I would like to hear the processes of why they decided to do this today, considering that they're trying to drive up interest in the draft. Right. And they're clearly taking viewers away from that. Goes right back to last night. I'll never understand why you play the futures game when every team's playing. Mm-hmm. Makes zero sense. So yeah. I would like to hear the ideology on how some of these things work. And there may be a very simple answer on why they're playing this one tonight. But a lot of times MLB walks away looking really dumb by some of the decisions they make, because they step on their own they step on their own toes, so to speak, just by blocking other avenues of interest.
Yeah. Of course, a lot of this is the fact that they've tried to move the draft down to this All-Star weekend to make it the focus, to give it that made-for-TV feel for it. Because before that, of course, the Futures game was played on Sunday afternoon. You played that later on Sunday afternoon. Most of these teams, like you said, the teams are playing real short games, or you don't feel so bad about, flipping back and forth, or, you catch something, whatever. On a Saturday afternoon, I'm sure people watched it. I'm sure that there were a lot of people that, tuned into that. I didn't get a chance to, but, I saw Weatherholt, had his double and everything.
Yeah.
I've also seen some criticism. I saw criticism as well of that they're treating the prospects, the futures game, a lot like the All-Star game, in which case these prospects are only going to get one at bat, and then they're out of the game. And it feels like if you're trying to raise awareness of this coming generation, you don't have the deep rosters. You have, enough that these guys can play half a game or more, and then maybe bring some people in late. But I get pitching is a different story. Obviously, they're not going to let them pitch 4 or 5 or 6 innings or whatever. But I do feel like they could do something different in that regard and let these guys, have a real futures game rather than just a glorified exhibition.
Yeah, it is. I don't know. I mean, it seems like they probably try to do the best they can, but it's hard to justify some of the means on that. And you're right on the pitching. I mean, that's going to be those are the investments, so to speak, that and they're going to take care of those. But yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense of how poorly they promote and execute the futures game when it means so much, and especially in I mean, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen this year. Wouldn't be blown away if it does. Just as a Cardinal fan, whether we see Weatherholt this year,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but it may be soon enough. And that he's one of 45 to 50 prospects that we could speak of on those things that are clearly playing right now, playing All-Star Weekend, playing in front of a very sparse crowd, which I think you could combine that into a Monday deal right before the Home Run Derby and really make a big deal out of it and have eyes on MLB Network or ESPN all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. The execution is very poor, and I think that goes back to poor planning, which I would love to be on a room on that because I don't know if there's any other option.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how I think the minor leagues take the whole week off too now, don't they? And you would know better than I, but it feels to me like maybe you do it on Wednesday, right? I mean, I get
A
that,
good call, yeah.
you've kind of, you've peaked maybe with the All-Star game, but Wednesday night, there is no baseball going if the minor leagues are off
100%.
as well.
Yeah.
Put that into the primetime, a primetime game on MLB Network and let people see these guys. That feels like these. Now, again, there's logistics. There's guys having to get back to their teams and things like that. So I'm guessing that's part of it. But to me, that's what that feels like. That feels like put it after the All-Star game. And I mean, on a day, not like later that night. That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that seems to be the obvious thing to me.
No, it makes a lot of sense because that's the historically lightest day in sports is the Wednesday after the MLB All-Star game.
Right.
That's why ESPN will broadcast their ESPYs that night, which is terrible. And there's nothing, and it makes a whole lot of sense to do something that day and turn it into a true week instead of the guys getting out of town on Tuesday as quick as they can after the game, and you have no baseball till Friday. It's one of those to where I think that you're onto something there, and I would like to hear the negotiating tactics that happen on these things and why they decide to do what they decide to do, and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with television revenue.
A lot of it has to do with revenue. A lot of it has to do with teams being able to market those guys, right? I mean, if you've got a futures game player, you're going to promote it, and if there's a roster of 40 on each side, that means there's 80 prospects that you can promote.
Yeah.
Whether they are, that top, the JJ Weatherholts, or if it's somebody that's, maybe a lot farther down the list. I think that's part of it. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into it, I'm sure. And the problem is, as with so much with Major League Baseball, the marketing side of things gets a whole lot more say than maybe it should.
Yeah. Very true. And ultimately you're right. There's a lot of weight on that, and I still don't believe they do it correctly.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're waiting on Major League Baseball to do something correctly, you're probably
I know. I hate that we love this sport and say the things that we do about it.
I mean, that's part of it, right? I mean, if you wouldn't care how they did it. It's the fact that we do love it that we have ideas of why it should be done better.
Yeah,
or how we would like to see it.
Yeah, I understand it's an everyday sport, which in today's world, media perspective, adds wrinkles to where you can promote week to week in the NFL. You have, visible stars in the NBA, things like that. And it kind of gets lapped a little bit by some of these other sports, and the gambling aspect in the other sports makes it so much easier. But
it's becoming a problem for baseball too, but that's another
story. And that's they're trying to dig into that and to see how they can make that beneficial, which I think will ultimately work. But I mean, as like we talked about this last week, I feel there is a ton of baseball interest right now in the youth, and more so than we've seen in forever. I think that's going up to high school baseball. I think it's really resonating in college baseball, and leading to some of that gap that we've talked about between college baseball and professional / MLB baseball. Because now you can see a lot of these guys. I mean, You saw Weatherholt in the Super Regional this year, and you could see him in Tulsa playing, the year after that. That's how close we are. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense.
No,
but I just feel like MLB has yet to figure out how to properly market these things and to showcase their stars as well as some of the other sports do. Now, with the caveat being that the other sports have an easier time to do it because they're not an everyday sport, but I still think that Major League Baseball is lacking in the way that they can promote some of these things.
OU's not MLB just yet. But,
they have so many. They have so many draftable guys, and trust me, it pains me to say.
Well, and with NIL money, maybe some of them are making,
Well, that's 100%. That is 100%
closer to that.
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I wonder, and maybe you can talk to this a lot because you were talking about how there's that interest from the youth. How much of that is top down in the fact that they watch Major League Baseball and get excited about it, and how much of it is bottom up because so many of these kids have started playing baseball, and so they're playing baseball and playing on travel teams and stuff like that, and because of that interest, because of they started that, then they start seeking out MLB.
Yeah. Now, this could be a soapbox moment for me. I will tell you.
David's already gone. He didn't have to listen to it, so go ahead.
Well, yes, I saw that, but here's where I am on this one. I do think that Major League Baseball has done a good job of promoting Ohtani. And I think that that's led to a ton of interest. I think that your Francisco Lindors, I think that your Mookie Betts, I think that some of the second tier guys, and I'll also say this, your Aaron Judge, I feel like some of these top guys are still getting a lot of billing in it, and MLB has done a good job with that. I think that you're missing a true star in Boston. You have a star in Boston that helps with the overall growth of the game. But my thing is, and I'm not a big fan of this just because I'm a baseball fan that grew up as a fan of one team my whole life, and that led to me being a fan of players. And I'm a fan of players outside of St. Louis and one of those. But this is my life, and this is what it's led me to, and the ability to coach it and to do things. This game's been good to me. On the bottom end of that, where you think that it's kind of the inherited trait of being a baseball fan, I do believe that. I will say I was really, like I talked about last week, I was really surprised by a lot of the kids that were wearing baseball stuff that the only way they would know about it is if they were baseball kids, if that makes sense. There's a lot of brands out there that are specifically marketed to baseball fans, to baseball families, and I saw a ton of it in the Denver airport, in the Houston airport, in Hawaii. I mean, it was crazy the amount of things that I'd seen and the amount of West Coast baseball influence that was in Hawaii. Really blew me away. That I was surprised by that, which was a good thing to see, which was a great thing. As a high school coach and as a former American Legion player and a fan of the American Legion leagues, I am not a fan of a lot of the travel leagues that these kids are promoting right now as players, because I do think it's a money grab that I think hurts baseball in the long run, because kids are getting burnt out, parents are broke, and I think it's all chasing that dream of playing somewhere at the next level. And I think that that's one thing that could be detrimental to baseball in the long run, which I think that the grassroots people are trying to see that and bring back some of the historical things that made baseball great, to where we're at a tipping point. I think that there's ultimate interest that we haven't seen that I don't think gets broadcast. I think we're in a dangerous spot on the youth side of it that some of this is going to be so expensive and jammed down kids' throats that I think that we're going to lose that element if we're not very careful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of that as well. So let's say the Cardinals are batting in the bottom of the eighth. It looks like the first half might actually come to a close at some point in time.
That's my goal. Helsley's warming up. I love him, but you never know.
Yeah, this is true. Hopefully by the end of this show, we've still got a little ways to go. But so assuming they hold on to this lead and win this game, they'll go into the break 5 over. Now, before I get into that, I do want to get into one of my I don't know if it's soapbox, pet peeve, I guess is the best thing to say. You know, I heard on the radio today, that if Sonny Gray won today's game, which obviously rain kept him from doing, he would be the first Cardinal to go into the All-Star break with double digits, to end the first half with double digits since Miles Michaelis 4 years ago, which is okay, great. But I hate all of these. This is the guy to do this in the first half. This first half is almost 100 games, right?
Yes.
I
That's
mean, it used to be that it was 82, maybe, and it wasn't really, never really was at 81, but it was at 84, 85. We're getting two or three extra weeks in this. There should be a whole lot more quote first half records.
Sure.
And I don't think we hear enough people give context to that. It's like, oh, well, that, they've had the, best record at going into the All-Star break. Well, yeah, because you played, extra many games. So I wish the All-Star game was a lot closer to the actual
halfway mark. Yes.
And two, I just wish that, if you're going to give these records, do it with some sort of context. But anyway.
Well, no. It's funny you even bring that up. It's one of those to where I just washed that away so quickly. I mean, 40 home runs is amazing by Rowley. Don't get me wrong. And that's impressive and fun to watch and great for the game. But you're 100% correct of, the halfway point was 15 games ago, which is it was essentially 3 extra starts, which they cooked in a fourth, if I'm not wrong, for Gray on this one. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, to throw the historical records out when they're throwing, 3 weeks worth of games, more so than you have in the past, which leads me into something else. Why do they keep pushing the All-Star game back?
I think, one, it goes back because they started playing in March, the end of March, and because they want to get baseball done by the end of October or end of September. And so they're adding games at the beginning, but that traditional, although I thought it was always the second Tuesday of July was typically the All-Star break.
Growing up, you're right.
Yeah, and how it has shifted to the third, I'm not 100% sure. I feel like some of that's just calendar, but I think that that week shifting back and then adding pretty much at least 1 week to the beginning of the All-Star of the season, if not closer to 2, because there's some years that it didn't start till April 6th, April 7th, April 8th. I think that's part of it, and I guess I don't know. I think part of it is the draft and getting everything together. I don't know if it has. I don't know if they want it closer to the All-Star or Hall of Fame weekend. I don't know why. I don't know. It just seems very strange that here we are. It's going to be the 15th of July. And that's somewhat just calendar, but it does feel like they continue to put it later, and I don't really know why either.
Yeah, it's silly, and you touched on that. The same thing of it's not a half. Yeah. The first portion segment, however you want to word it, but you're right.
Yeah. So anyway, Cardinals are again, if they can salvage today, they'll at least not go into the break losing 3 in a row to the Braves, a team that has talent, but has also not been a good team this year.
Sure.
They had, they won 2 out of 3 against the Nationals, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is a team that's got any sort of momentum going into the break. And being that the trade deadline is, basically 2 weeks, 2 weeks from tomorrow, the next, I don't remember if it's at the 31st this year. I can't remember. They move it around. I think it's the 31st this year.
Yes.
So you've got, 2+ weeks, I guess, but still, you're not going to play again until Friday night. So it's basically 2 weeks till the deadline. I don't know that I have a real good feel for what this team is going to do or what they should do.
Well, and I'm not sure. It's funny. I'm not sure what they can do.
Yeah.
That's it's one of those. Honestly, I've had a very, very good time watching this team play this summer. And it's one of the situations where you're thinking, okay, this is now you can kind of see that you can kind of see the workings of what could be a good ball club ultimately, and what happens in the offseason could get extremely interesting this year. To see what they feel is right, what they feel is a piece. One of those things. But as much as I like to say it, and much as I enjoyed it, and it's fun to watch, and they're right in the mix. You're knocking on the door of the wild card, much further along than what we anticipated, really. It's still just kind of one of those. Whatever move they make, so will either, I don't know how this makes sense. Is either going to be extremely surprising or not surprising at all. Because back to the safety aspect of the draft, I think that's probably what we're looking at as far as the deadline. Because I don't think their pieces are going to be movable, and while I would say I think that one of their bigger gambles would be moving some of those pieces that you probably should have last year. I just don't know if your value is going to be there, and like back to the Helsley situation, yeah. If you can get someone to overpay for him, that's huge. If not, that may be a qualifying offer type situation at this point. But it's fun. It felt like there was energy in the ballpark this weekend. The crowds weren't great, and which what I like doing is asking a lot of the ushers and the people that are working in the stadium some of their opinions on stuff. And almost all of them rallied back to the fact that season ticket holders just don't come because they're mad that ownership doesn't want to spend money. And I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. I think that you're in a situation with the Cardinals that they bypassed on so many superstars. And I understand you have the aging superstars of Goldschmidt and Arenado that I think people are just have ruffled feathers right now that you've seen a few guys that would really bring people to the ballpark that you just chose not to do it for, financial reasons. And bottom line, you just kind of look cheap. To go back, I have another point I want to make here in a second, but like I said, your guess is as good as mine. I think that they're probably going to stay in this as long as they can, if they can get some arms. I do think some of those arms are in the organization already that they probably need to use, and that answers a lot of questions as far as a reboot, reset, whatever you want to word, however you want to word it. And I feel like you win or lose with the guys that you think are going to be here for a while, and that may not be the answer that anyone's looking for, and it kind of takes away from the excitement of the deadline, which I love. But I just think that's probably what we're looking at.
Yeah, it does. I think we've talked about it, and David and I have talked about it with some others. It does feel like this is a situation where the Cardinals might not decide until July 28th or 29th
Sure.
which way they want to go. They'll have,
and that's a Mo move through and through.
Yeah, and they'll have feelers out. They'll have, they might have a deal kind of in place or close or something, so that if they need to pull a trigger, they can pull a trigger. But the Cardinals come out of the break and they go to Arizona and Colorado, and that's you never know what happens in Arizona, and
yeah,
you'd like
and
to say you're going to
play bad in Colorado.
Yeah, you'd like to think as bad as the Rockies are, but the White Sox were terrible last year, and the Cardinals struggled in Chicago. You don't know. Anything can happen in Colorado. So, you could easily come out of that trip 3-3 and just kind of have, just kind of stayed where you were. Do you think there's going to be a real pressure if the Cardinals are above 500 come, July 24th, 25th, somewhere in there, to go and add, even if it doesn't seem like they're really going anywhere?
It's kind of funny you bring that up, because I was going to throw that back on you like that. I was going to say, and if you truth serum the Cardinals, what do they want to do right now? Like, this is Mo's last hurrah. He's for years has been, we're just not going to make a trade to make one. But doesn't he kind of have to do that this year? You know what I mean by that? It's one of those, you're just like, how I like the standing put type situation. And I am not a big sell guy, because I don't know what sell they have, but I think that some of those movable pieces, I think you move if you get an offer for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, I don't know if you want your legacy of standing pat.
Yeah, I don't know. I do wonder how much. I mean, there's the story of John Mozeliak is basically written, right? I mean, unless he turned straw into gold in this trade deadline somehow, made a like a Nolan Arenado type trade here at the deadline. It's hard to imagine that this moves the needle much on his time in St. Louis, right? I
Yeah.
mean, he's got the two rings, one as GM. He's here as assistant GM in 06. He's got the Goldschmidt trade. He's got the Arenado trade. He's got the David Freese trade, if you want to look at it that way. So I do think Mo would like to do something in his final thing, but I also don't know that he's so concerned of how he's perceived that he's going to go out and make a deal that doesn't need to be made. I think he's perfectly comfortable coming to the media and say, "Hey, we just didn't see anything we liked, and
Yeah.
this team, we believe in this team, and whatever you want to say." But that's kind of where I'm thinking is if there's something there, But again, like we've talked about, what do you add? Like, what are you doing? What can you trade to get in something in this system?
Well,
And it doesn't feel like you can do much more than send a guy at AA for
yeah,
some relief form that's on an expiring contract. That seems about it.
sure. This is just saying I'm gonna eliminate anybody that has the no trade clause. So
Right.
is there a situation, and is Mo a genius if he can go and get a controllable rotation arm and keep Gorman and Donovan? Is that a win? I mean, I
Yeah.
personally think
Yeah.
that's a massive win, and I don't think you're going to be able to flip Newbar.
No, especially not with his injuries.
That's the thing. That's just it. I think healthy. I think you probably could. He kind of seemed like the odd man out. I think they're going to continue their patience, and they should with Walker. I think that you found your center fielder in Scott, and you think he's going to hit. I think that that's the thing. The other, you have too many ifs maybe in the long term, but I think that you know what you're going to get out of Scott and hope to improve, and win and hope to improve, but know that they may be, positive win players defensively alone in the long run. But if I feel like if you can make a trade for a controllable arm and keep a Gorman, a Donovan, and at this point Herrera, I think that that's a pretty good trade deadline. But I don't know if you can do it.
Yeah, I think that's where it boils down to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you're wanting an arm, that's controllable, you want them because they're good enough to keep in the system for 2 or 3 years or whatever the
Yes.
control is. And if there's a pitcher out there that has years of control, it's going to take somebody with years of control going back. I mean, it just, especially, a situation we often talk about, going to Seattle and seeing Seattle do something. Get one of the pitchers for somebody like that. But yeah, I think it's very difficult to see how that happens without a Gorman or a Donovan or, something like that. And,
Yeah.
Again, you can make a case, even though that Gorman has played much better as of late. You can make a case that it makes sense for him to go. You could make a case that even though Donovan's an all-star, it makes sense that if you can get that kind of arm, because you know what you're talking about, a rotation in a maybe in just 2 years, especially if Sonny Gray exercises his option of a Gray, a Matthews, a Liberatore, maybe a Doyle. You could start seeing those kind of guys.
Sure. I mean, don't you think Hintz is somebody that's going to be, the injury history is going to be a problem? But
Yeah.
Hintz is another guy that's knocking on the door to where he could potentially be your bullpen guy. And like we talked about, if you can come in and be successful on that, that's not a complete tank job. Roby's the guy that I feel like is probably a one that you see pretty quick before, sometime.
Mm-hmm.
What I kind of wonder too is, I wouldn't say I scoffed at it, but whenever you brought it up a couple weeks ago of Fetty being DFA'd, I kind of thought, I just can't see him doing that. I can completely see that now. And I get the feeling that I think that their big trade deadline move is going to be maybe promoting the younger guys and say, like, hey, let's roll with it, which I think adds more excitement to the club than what they've got.
Well, yeah. And as Ryan Helsley made it interesting as he usually does, but
Yes.
somehow they actually got Sean Murphy out for the first time, I think, this
By
week.
the way, Daniel, I'll tell you something. You know, all 3 of his homers this week were with 2 strikes.
Really?
And I'm telling you, the first one was a 9-pitch at bat.
Mm-hmm.
Their lineup, the Braves lineup is extremely good. That just shows how much pitching they've missed this year. But I was blown away. And I looked at Amber at one point in the Friday night game and I said, does it seem like they're hitting a ton of foul balls? She goes, it does. And then the next day on the radio broadcast, they brought up how it was a record for pitches between starters in 3 innings.
Yeah.
And it's one of those to where, and Liberatore, to me, I feel like he's the de facto ace. I'm a huge fan of Liberatore. But I do kind of wonder if we've seen it with Michaelis. I don't know if it's necessarily Fetty, but I'm going to tell you, he can't put anybody away. I do kind of wonder if it books out on some of these guys now and you don't necessarily know what's coming. Because Liberatore, who I think has a deadly curveball, couldn't really get people out.
Well, and again, I think it goes back to, and we've heard this a lot in, especially in tonight. We were talking about how when they went to Liam Doyle is swing and miss, and they don't have it. I mean, as well as Liberatore has pitched, it's 7.2 over, 7.2 K per 9. I mean, he's got 80 strikeouts in 100 innings. That's just not, I mean, he's been effective, and don't get me wrong, there's a place for that. But if you're not striking people out, you're going to give up a lot of foul balls. You're going to give up a lot of contact. You're going to necessarily good chance of going deeper in games if you're not on. And Liberatore was not on that game at all. So I think that they need, and I think that's what we would like to think we're seeing with a Doyle pick is they're recognizing that swing and miss. They talked about it, a couple of years ago, right? In the year that they got Gray and Lynn and Gibson. And, Gray has had that at times and more than anybody else for sure. But to get get a guy out there that can strike out 7, 8, 9 guys in his start, maybe more, they don't have that. And I think that when you don't have that, it becomes a lot easier for teams to figure out how to stay alive in a count until something goes their way.
Yeah. That's a great point. Stuff that I had that I probably should look into a little bit further. It's one of those. I don't know. From what we've seen with Liberatore, I think that he has a bright future. I'm kind of curious to see how it all plays out for him in St. Louis, but I think that he has had. He's proven to me that I just really think that could be a good 2 or 3 in the long run for them. And that's somebody who thinks that maybe Gray may be a 2 in the long run. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Those are things that I kind of forget about. I do think he's highly effective, but you're right. I mean, it's a lot of times, and with the pitching foundation they have, a lot of times those holes, those hits find holes.
Yeah, I want to pull up. I want to look at Liberatore's splits because overall, some of his numbers are starting to creep back into what we've seen from him over the last couple of years. Now, granted, we're seeing him in a different way and a different, seeing more innings and things like that. In June, he had 5 starts with a 5.14 ERA, and then of course his 2 starts in July, he's got a 9 ERA, and so I think that's something to watch, right? I mean, is he getting worn down? Yes. The league starting to figure him out? All that kind of stuff, I think, is going to be key before we start. I think right now, we're putting him as the number 2, number 3 in the starting rotation for next year, depending on what happens. But I don't know. I think that's pencil instead of pen right now.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And that's something that even reading your piece yesterday, something that I had kind of thought about, and I wish I would have dug into a little bit more of how much of a lot of these guys being everyday players, do they need the break that bad right now? Mm-hmm. I would say they do, just because there's a lot of guys in the lineup that that were, yes, pieces that played a lot but weren't every day. You have Liberatore, who we thought was going to be a bullpen piece or not on the team, and to turn out to be a guy that takes the ball every fifth day. Some of those things are a factor, and a lot of it, I bet, plays into it.
Yeah, I was just still scrolling down Liberatore's splits here for this year, and something kind of stood out to me, and I think it kind of goes back to what we're talking about with the lack of strikeout stuff. With 2 outs and runners in scoring position, he's giving up almost 1,000 OPS.
Yeah.
It's limited. I mean, it's 42 plate appearances, so small. But I think that's indicative of not being able to, to finish things off.
Yeah.
In part because people are looking to make sure, they're trying not to strike out, and you're not giving them that opportunity to strike out. So, I don't know. I think it's going to be I think that might be, one of the biggest things to look at in the second half is just how, does Liberatore adjust and come back? He's hitting, probably, I need to double check, but my guess would be he's hitting a new high in innings pitched.
Sure.
At least at the major league level. Yeah, easily. He's well past. He's already thrown 14 more innings than he threw last year. Now, granted, he threw minor league innings last year, so there's that too. But, is that going to be there? I think that may be the thing to look at in the second half, at least on the pitching side of things. What if you were going to say something else? What would you say?
Yeah, there's a part of me too that worries about the innings limit that may even make them not make any rotation changes and say, hey, we're going to keep what we have here, but we're also going to throw in a McGreevy plus, maybe a Roby at some point, just because they know they're going to need innings to get through the season. We've seen that before to where, it's a lot of these guys are. I'm just worried that it's going to look a lot plus, which I think that they may be better by subtraction, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I can see that to some degree. And they're going to have to find, I think when you're talking about innings right there, it makes sense to think that they're going to have to find somebody to come in and cover some of these, right? Because, we're seeing Liberatore kind of, like I said, hitting some levels. We don't want to see.
Does that save Fetty a job is basically what I'm saying.
Fetty's going to have to go deeper than 4 innings, though.
That's what concerns me about, especially with the Marmol or Mo deal this week of Marmol being pretty clear that that's not what they wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. It is very, very, that was a very, very interesting.
It was.
Thing.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No. I agree with you. I probably should have brought that up earlier than past the hour mark, but you're right. I mean, that was the first time that we've actually kind of seen that of, hey, this is not what we wanted.
Yeah, we have, and there's the idea, and I think it's a fair idea. I understand where it's coming from, of the idea that Ollie is John Mozeliak's yes man, right? That he's
sure.
And I don't think I don't want to say it like that because I think that's the way people imply it. I think that they're all on the same. They tend to think on things. They get together. They talk things out. And I think oftentimes they are thinking the same way. And I think that's part of why, and that is probably part of why they got Ollie Marmol in there. It's not necessarily just to do the bidding. He was just a guy that kind of fits the mold that they were looking for. That said, nobody's going to agree all the time. And we obviously saw that this week. I think it is just incredible for the Cardinals to think. I mean, this is not, hey, Kent Bottenfield won 16 games so we can trade him for Jim Edmonds. This is not that kind of market. I mean, Eric Fetty could have gone out and thrown a no-hitter, and that wouldn't necessarily have changed his market value, I don't think, because they would have looked at the fact that he can't get anybody else out. He had a great game, but they'd at least want to see 1 or 2 more to see if something happened. And I guess maybe, most best case scenario. But the idea that he could have gone out and salvaged his trade value is very, very iffy.
Yes.
That being said, if you're not necessarily looking to push at the deadline, I mean, it probably doesn't hurt to try and throw him out there one more time and then let McGreevy take over in the second half. I mean,
I mean, it was very curious how it played out. And I mean, And there was a part of me yesterday that was thinking, well, is he going to get out of this and he's going to push this a little bit more? But Ollie went and got him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? One of those things. I was like, well, that's the best thing for me, just because if it's a year of transition and to see what you got, I kind of want to see what the younger guys have.
Yeah, and I think it's just so. I like Mo. We always have. He's always been great for
100%.
us.
I am a Mo. Yes.
Yeah, always. But I think it's very, very tone deaf to give a quote of saying Michael McGreevy's ready to play in the big leagues. We just don't have a spot for him when you've got two veteran guys that are having trouble getting out of the third inning. You can do something about Michael McGreevy. And in a season where you've talked about runway, move Fetty to a bullpen role if you want to. I mean, there's arms out there that can be moved, or just let him go. I get you want the depth, but I don't think he's giving you that depth right now. Sure, maybe some contender picks him up and he gets a World Series ring. Good for him, but I don't think it's going to do you any good to keep him sitting around in your rotation, taking up a spot and going out there, where you're not sure he's going to give you. We're not sure he's going to give you 4, much less 6 or 7, what you might actually need. Where you can bring up McGreevy, who I do not believe is like the savior of the world or anything, but he can give you 6 solid innings and keep you in a ball game, which is a lot more than we've seen out of Fetty recently.
And plays into the narrative that you've been promoting all year.
Exactly.
That's look what the excitement's come from the fact that you've played these guys and they're competing and they're winning and they're doing their thing. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to make that comment when you're getting shelled and you kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, if in the next good Cardinal rotation, Michael McGreevy's probably at best a 5 if he's in it, right? But this year, I mean, what we've seen of him right now, he's your 3. Maybe on a good day, could be your 2, right? I mean, I think that, and I do think, and I don't want to be honest, I do think that there's going to be some sort of move that after we either during the All-Star break or right after it. I don't know that Eric Fetty makes another start.
I was surprised to see him make this one. You and I talked about that after the Chicago game, where I thought, okay, the off day Monday going into the break buys you that start where you could do the reset and we're working on some things. Gives you the perfect excuse.
Right.
And I'm not so certain the ball club didn't think the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, they may. And I'm sure Ollie was pushing for something like that. I think I don't. And again, maybe the fact that the league came down on the Mets for their, kind of phantom injuries type of thing. Maybe that scared some people. But I mean, if you said, hey, Eric Fetty's got a shoulder impingement, he's got to go on the injured list. How are you going to disprove that to some degree? It's not obviously not from the results.
Sure.
So I think you could get away with that. So I don't know. I do think Michael McGreevy makes a start in. I don't know that he makes another minor league start. I think he makes his next start in the major leagues, but we'll see if that actually happens.
Yeah. I hope to see it. Let's be honest with you.
We're actually, since this is Gateway and Musial, we're going to put it together. It's going to wind up an hour and a half. The first half hour was Gateway and the rest of it's Musial. So we've talked about what we think the biggest thing is for the pitching going forward. What's the biggest thing to look for in the second half from the offensive side of things?
Is Burleson? I think that you're going to look at that. I think that Herrera coming back and them. I think activating him today was A, awesome, and B, shows what they need offensively. That they need guys that are going to go out and swing the bat. I think that if you get, I think that there's going to be some patience, but you really hope you get a little bit more offense out of Wynn and / Scott. At this point, you kind of know what you're going to get with Arenado, and that's kind of expected. I think you kind of went into it with that. But you're going to have to get picked up by somebody with a healthy new bar. He's got hit like he did earlier in the season, and start figuring out who some of these next guys are. Because to me, I think Burleson's hit enough to where he's going to play into he's worked your way into the plans. I love Donovan. Donovan's a tough out, on base machine. I love him. If you can add another bat and more contributors, I think that the future's pretty bright.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the biggest thing for me in the second half is Jordan Walker. What is he? Is he going to get a chance to play? Is he going to be a guy that can start to be what you thought he was going to be? Is it a guy that is still going to need more work? I don't know what we will see, but I think they kind of need to see something here in the second half that at least gives them some confidence one way or another about their approach to Walker in the second half, or not the second half, in 2026. I think that may be the biggest question mark that I think they're going for the next couple months.
Yeah. What's your gut feeling on that?
It's hard to know. I still am not
so young,
sure.
damn it.
I mean, yeah,
the thing is you just can't. I mean, I like the fact that they're giving him some time again, using the injury to wrap around to slowly bring him along. I know that people are tired of the slowly bringing along with him, but man, he's 23 years old. You know what I mean? They are so young as a ball club. I just feel like there's time.
I agree with that. I think that a lot of why we are hesitant about Jordan Walker is because they've rushed him up, and we forget, he's been around for 2 or 3 seasons now, and we forget how young he is. That said, you see especially when you're seeing guys, get drafted and be in the major leagues in a couple of years and succeeding, it gets frustrating. And I get development happens at different levels, and I'm not at all complaining about that. I don't think that this is a situation where you get rid of Walker even this winter, but I do think they need to see some signs of progress, and I don't know if they've seen it yet. So I think that the second half may be, a situation where if they don't see it there, then maybe they start reevaluating what Walker means for this organization.
Sure. Now that I could understand. I just, as young as Scott Wynn and Walker are, I just feel like you have to be patient. And I feel like, Scott hit his way into the big leagues, but to me, profiles as a guy that's going to be elite defensively. I think Wynn's at that point now. I think he's second in the league and outs above average as a shortstop, and that's huge. I mean, it's one of those to where, he maybe miscast hitting at the top of the lineup a little bit. I mean, potentially. It doesn't steal as many bases as I thought, but it also doesn't get on base as much. But I think that ultimately that's going to happen. I feel like just because Walker doesn't have the glove that the other two do yet, although he played well in right field this year, I feel like the patience has to be there as well. And I don't know when that patience will run out or how that'll work, but I feel like you look at a Donovan and a Burleson and think, hey, this is long-term guys. I think Herrera's done enough. Now, Herrera's going to throw him into the Herrera is going to be interesting just because of his inability to catch, or if they think that he'll ever be able to catch. I really don't know. But that'll be an interesting wrinkle on the deal. But as far as bats go, I think that you're going to have to be patient with the young three and ride the Donovans, Burleson, and Herrera at this point and just see where it takes you.
Yeah. I think it's. There's a lot of things to determine in the second half, even if the Cardinals fall out of things. I mean, they're 6.5 out of the division. I think they're a game and a half out of the wild card after today's win. I think, after that big series going west, they come home and they've got 4 with the Padres. That, I wrote about it in the Substack. That may be the deciding factor, right? I mean, that could be a last stand right there, where if they lose 2 or 3 to the Padres, the team that they're chasing in the wild card, that might set the trade deadline on a different course. So a lot of things coming up in the next little bit, in the next few months to watch, even if they're not Even if we're not watching the standings, there'll be a lot of different things and
Yeah.
hope that there's, some excitement that carries over to next year. You're right. This team has been a lot of fun to watch this year, and I think there's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the second half, quote, quote, second half, about the last third at this rate. And I think that should make it, again, you've said it a lot of times, you don't want them ruining your summer, and they're not going to do that this year.
No, and they're exciting to watch in my eyes. I had a great time this weekend, so much so I'm going back in a couple weeks for the Padres series, and it's just one of those to where I like where it's going. I feel like it's heading in the right direction, and I feel like that's going to catch up to where fans are going to start coming back. And you see young pitching coming. First pick today, they get an arm, a potential big arm, and it's just at this point they played their way into where even if things were to fall apart, which the optimistic side of me says, which is almost 100% of me says that it's not going to happen, but it might, and they're light years away ahead of where we thought they were going to be, and a lot of this point, during parts of the winter, we thought guys were going to be fired and moved on and things like that. And I just don't see that coming.
Yeah. I mean, we were thinking about a real teardown here at the deadline. And now,
Yeah.
I mean, those pieces still could leave, but I think it's just as likely, if not more so, that they wind up staying in place. So we will see. We will see. Alan and I, again, if you're listening to this on the Gateway feed, you're probably like, man, this is taking forever. But we appreciate you sticking with us. And you can always find us at Meet Me at Musial as well. And Alan and I will probably record again Friday or Saturday of this week, maybe depending on what happens over the All-Star break. David and I will be back next Sunday. So until then, for David in absentia and for Alex, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Widespread stance, arms out over the plate. Bickford from the stretch. The 1-1 pitch. A swing, and there it goes! Left field, way back! That's home run number 700! Pujols hits a 3-run homer, and he hit 699 and 700 at Dodger Stadium on September 23rd, 2022.